new charges tonight that the abuses perpetrated by the private security contractor, which used to be known as Blackwater in Iraq and Afghanistan, possibly even worse than previously imagined. And a lot has been imagined. Two former Blackwater employees, a married couple named Brad and Milan Davis, filing a lawsuit in which they allege the company put a Filipino prostitute on its payroll in Afghanistan, then billed the U.S. government for her salary and plane tickets. The prostitute's salary categorized as part of the company's morale, welfare, recreation expenses. Ms. Davis, who worked for the finance department, claiming that she and two co-workers spent numerous hours generating reams of false invoices for airplane travel at inflated rates so her bosses could overcharge the government for the fake trips. In her lawsuit, also saying that the company used a subsidiary, Greystone Limited, to double bill the government for plane tickets between the U.S. and Amman, Jordan, a transit point for the company's employees going to Iraq and back from Iraq. Ms. Davis saying she raised concern about Blackwater's bookkeeping with her bosses in March 2006 when she was handling accounts for the company's contracts with FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. She says she was told to, quote, back off, and that she, quote, would never win a medal for saving the government money. No, but if the government is able to recover money from Blackwater as a result of this lawsuit, the Davises could claim a percentage as whistleblowers. Ms. Davis having been fired from that company. Her husband, a former Marine, who among other jobs worked as a private security guard in Iraq, having resigned from Blackwater, formerly Blackwater, voluntarily. Let's call in David Korn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones magazine and a columnist for politicsdaily.com. David, good evening.
Good to be with you, Keith.
I said that this was perhaps worse than most of us have previously imagined, but I mean, in terms of imagination, we're getting into Edgar Allan Poe territory, aren't we?
Well, it's more like Rambo meets Wall Street when it comes to Blackwater. And for all the stuff about the money, which is rather important, already the State Department found that $55 million in charges that the State Department probably should get back from Blackwater because they didn't meet their obligations under their contracts to protect diplomats. But putting all that aside, in this lawsuit and in other previous allegations, the issue of the use of excessive force in Iraq and Afghanistan continue to plague Blackwater. And to me, that still is the heart of the issue here, because what we've done, well, not we, not you and I, but what the Bush-Cheney administration did was to privatize this government responsibility, protecting our own diplomats, and hand it out to Blackwater and other private security firms, and has no accountability for what these guys and gals do in the field. And we've seen time and time again, including that infamous episode in Nisar Square in Iraq, that there's been an excessive use of force, which is done in our name to protect our diplomats, theoretically, but it's something that the U.S. government really doesn't have much control over. And that's been the core problem with Blackwater and the use of other private security firms.
These companies and their prevalent use in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, this was the brainchild of Dick Cheney, who stood to profit personally from this. Is there a practical element to this whistleblower suit? Could it in some way bring this company down or at least slow it down?
I don't know. We have to know that this is a lawsuit in which whistleblowers can get the U.S. government to take their side and sue the company. And the Justice Department, for whatever reason, has elected so far not to join this couple in suing Blackwater. But still, the Justice Department has an ongoing investigation onto whether Blackwater bribed Iraqi officials. And there's another front. There was recently a case in which 5 Blackwater guards, they had murder charges against them. They were dismissed. The Justice Department really botched the prosecution. But that prosecution, that decision is being appealed by the U.S. government. So there are a lot of places where Blackwater still has legal liability, public relations liability, and so I'm not sure this lawsuit is going to be the straw that breaks its back, but Blackwater is still under fire.
And yet today, Iraq ordered about 250 former and current employees of this company, now known as Z, to leave the country within 7 days. It sounds like they've got the right idea. We don't.
Well, that might be a political ploy as well. Listen, the Bush-Cheney gang snowed the American public when they privatized everything. The work that Blackwater is contracted to do is work that has to be done. We have to protect American diplomats overseas. I mean, the contracts that Blackwater and other companies get are for legitimate operations. The problem is that these are operations that perhaps should be done by the government itself, so that the U.S. taxpayers who pay for this can really be fully in charge and have full accountability of what's being done in return for the dollars they spend. So that's the fundamental issue here. And regardless of what happens with Blackwater on all these accounts, we still need these jobs performed, but performed well, with sensitivity, and not in a way that gets Iraqis, people in Afghanistan, and others really ticked off at Americans, or even killed for no good reason.
And with fewer prostitutes billed to the U.S. government as well.
Well, that would be a benefit too.
Just asking for some side benefits here, or lack of side benefits. David Korn of Mother Jones. Great, thanks, David.